Wilson, read and written by Olivia Wilson. Something didn't seem right to my dad. He had gotten a sinking feeling from the letter he had received that day, and when he tried calling the house that Messiah, 4.5-year-old Erika, and he had shared until they separated 3 months earlier, there was no answer. He hung up and tried again, and again. There was still nothing. He was now pacing back and forth in his apartment, making the same call every 5 minutes. There was an unsettled feeling inside of him, which got worse and worse with each unanswered call. After giving up on calling the house, my father called as many of Messiah's friends as he could think of in hopes that one of them had heard something. However, it got him no closer to an answer. Eventually, he decided to climb the dilapidated Honda Civic that he had bought for $175 after he had moved out and head over to the house. As he opened the front door and got inside, he could just feel that something wasn't quite right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Everything seemed to be in its regular place, like dishes, furniture, and other little knickknacks on the shelves. But as my father looked slightly closer, he noticed a few things here and there that were missing. The house just didn't seem like anyone was living in it. The shelves were just a little too neat and there was hardly any clutter. Then when he looked in the closets and saw that all of their clothes were absent, he realized that Messiah and Erika were really gone. My father returned to his apartment, and for the next few days he called and called because he had no idea where they had gone and if they were coming back. There was even a short period of time when he worried that Messiah had taken Erika and committed suicide with her and that they were dead. However, he finally decided to call Messiah's parents in Japan. In his broken Japanese, he was able to communicate enough to confirm that Messiah and Erika were staying there, but that Messiah refused to speak with him. They wouldn't allow Erika to speak with him, that they didn't want him anymore, and that he shouldn't call there ever again. Nonetheless, he telephoned several more times, and eventually they disconnected their phone.
We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
He and Messiah's separation had come after 14 years of being together. Their relationship had never been smooth, but even so, they had gone through college together, then moved to Japan and lived there together. Erika had been born when he was a medical student in Boston. After that, they moved to San Francisco, and things began to fall apart from there. A large contributor to this was that Messiah didn't know many people. She was away from her family again, and my father was spending close to 90 hours a week at residency, so he wasn't around as much. All of this coming at once made her unhappy, which she often took out on my dad. Many fights followed, some of them being somewhat violent, in which Messiah threw things at my father. Eventually, she demanded that he move out, so he rented a small studio apartment, bought the $175 Honda, and ultimately filed for divorce. This would mean that the two would have to share custody over Erika, and for Messiah, this did not seem tolerable. It was probably this that sent her over the edge and prompted her to go to such an extreme measure as violating the law. This was legally kidnapping, and leaving the country with their only daughter. After the shock of their disappearance wore off, my father decided to start taking actions. Swirling inside of him was a jumble of emotions: helplessness, panic, anger, fear, and confusion. And all of it was made worse by the distance between San Francisco and Japan. Although there were many legal matters to take care of in the United States, the most urgent thing seemed to be arranging a trip to Japan. In Tokyo, the American Embassy, an outpost of the American government abroad, offered to send social workers to visit Erika and make sure she was okay, but that was about all they could do just then. This wasn't enough for him. He just couldn't accept that answer. So my dad hired a Japanese lawyer who arranged for ongoing supervised court visits, which was the only time he was allowed to spend with Erika. He tried to push for less restrictive visits, something longer than just 90 minutes, so he could stay as close as possible with his daughter, but the court was unwilling. My father couldn't stop thinking about something the ambassador had told him back in Tokyo. If he could sneak Erika back to the embassy, the government could support him in bringing her back to the US, where the laws would keep Masao from ever taking her away again. With his limited parental rights in Japan and poor Japanese language skills, this would be extremely difficult and risky. He would have to find a way to take Erika under Masao's radar. This thought kept swirling around in his mind, while my dad continued to fight in court for his rights. The court judges were polite, but eventually one of them took him aside and explained that they would not change their minds and allow for partial custody in Japan. The judge also told my dad about a traditional Japanese belief that if two parents divorce, the child is taken away from the father and lives with a mother. Then the child is told that the father is dead. Some in Japan believe this is the best way to handle a situation like this because they think it is bad for the child to be torn between two parents. My father also learned that Japan was one of the only countries that had not adopted the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, which is an international law outlawing child abduction. After more than 2 years of trips back and forth to Japan, court visits, frustration, and anguish, there appeared to be a breakthrough. The courts had granted an overnight visit at a nearby hotel. He was excited to have the chance to spend a longer time with Erika, but he also wondered if this was a time to take her to the embassy and escape Japan. However, soon after the evening began, Masao called the hotel saying that she had decided she didn't feel comfortable letting Erika stay there after all. Masao demanded that my dad return Erika back to her. My father couldn't believe what he was hearing and immediately responded, "You aren't allowed to do that. I am just visiting my own daughter." The conversation quickly became heated with shouts and accusations being passed over the phone. By the end, Masao threatened to call the police. It was then that he realized that Erika had become terribly distraught. She was scared and was sobbing. My father was torn. On one hand, he desperately wanted to grab Erika, rush to the embassy, and take her back to the US. However, on the other hand, he could see how much pain and fear he was causing her. My dad experienced a crucial moment when he recognized what he needed to do as a parent to keep the situation from further harming Erika. After all, Masao was never going to let it go. He made his excruciating decision. For Erika's sake, he would let Masao pick her up that night from the hotel, knowing full well that he might be letting go of his last chance to take Erika back. And in fact, that was the last time he ever saw her. She was 7 at the time, and now she is 26. In addition to being an important part of my family history, this story shows that life isn't always fair. In spite of that, sometimes you have to accept the unfairness and find a way to move past it. That's what my father had to do. The story also illustrates how belief about right and wrong may be viewed differently in different cultures. Finally, and even more profoundly, it highlights how love for a child can be a powerful force. My father desperately wanted revenge and to hurt Masao after she hurt him, but when he saw Erika's face in the hotel that night, he recognized that this future would hurt her even more. His love for his daughter overpowered the selfish and vengeful feelings that he had towards Masao.